Gauranga. Hare Krishna, good morning dear devotees from Sridham Mayapur. They told me I'm supposed to say my name is Madhavananda Das. And these are our daily adventures in Srimad Bhagavatam. They're nearly daily. And today we're on the 29th segment of our discussion. We're calling Meeting in Kurukshetra, or the Trail of Tears. And today we're going to speak something about a very esoteric topic, how the disciple, in the language of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, how the disciple is a separable constituent of the Guru. It means the disciple is part of the Guru. And what does that mean? So first we'll say a few prayers. Gora Graganya Gana Gocha Goloruharam Goranga Gudatama Gopyara Kopa Briksham Gopala Gadharati Dam Yati Singha Gora Govinda Deshi Kavaram Satatam Namami Narayanam Namaskrityam Naramshaiva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Vedi Ramayaneshchaiva Purane Bharate Tata Adavante Chamadye Chahari Sarvatra Giyate Mukham Karodi Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yet Kripa Tamaham Vande Shigurum Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Paramananda He Madhava Padunga Luchi Makaranda Se Makaranda Panakori Anande Bolo Hari Hari Harinka Name Vandavela Parikodive Chakadola Se Chakadolanka Paraye Manamo Rahu Nirantare Manamo Nirantare Rahu Ha Krishna Boli Jiva Jao Ha Krishna Boli Jao Jiva Moteu Dadaradha Dava Moteu Dadaradha Dava Moteu Dadaradha Dava Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya 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 Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Good morning, dear devotees from Sridham Mayapur. We're discussing something on Srimad Bhagavatam today, and a very esoteric topic today about how the disciple is a separable constituent of the Guru. Constituent means a part. And speaking something in connection with Uddhava. So I want to welcome Madhupati Prabhu from Hungary and Naveen Prabhu. Thank you for taking part today. So reading from the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 46. In our last session we spoke something from text 1. I'll continue with the same verse, and maybe the same verse in our next session, or even 2. This particular verse has a lot of purport to it. Shishukavacha Vrishninam Prabhavo Mantri Krishnasya Dvaita Sakha Sishya Brihaspate Sakshat Uddhavo Buddhi Sattama. Shukadeva Goswami said, the supremely intelligent Uddhava was the best counselor of the Vrishni dynasty, a beloved friend of Lord Sri Krishna, and a direct disciple of Brihaspati, So in this verse, Uddhava is described with the words Buddhi Sattama, meaning the most intelligent, indicating that he would be expert enough to be able to pacify the residents of Vrindavan who were feeling such intense separation from Krishna. And then when he returned to Mathura, he would also be able to speak to the members of the Vrishni dynasty about the extraordinary love that he saw in Vrindavan. So, and one of the topics in our last session was why Krishna didn't return to Vrindavan and why he didn't bring the gopis, etc., to Mathura. And Jiva Goswami in his commentary quotes a verse from the next chapter, which is also known as the Brahmara Gita, or Uddhava's words, or Radharani's words, to the bumblebee. And the verse describes, Yata durachare preshte mana avishyavartate strinam chana tata cheta sani krishte kshi gochare. When her lover is far away, a woman thinks of him more than when he's present before her. And we spoke something about the contradictory nature of prema, of Braj Prem, and how when the lover and the beloved are separated, they actually feel more union than when they're together. Very, very deep principle. And it was because of this also that Krishna decided not to go to Braj at that time. And Jiva Goswami says, but in his apricot form, Krishna remains in Braj at all times. As there's a saying that Vrindavana parityagat parikam nagachati. The Krishna never even takes one step outside of Vrindavan. He's always there in Vrindavan. So this will be discussed more in some later sessions. And Krishna tells the gopis, Bhavatinam viyogo me nahi sarvatmanak vachit. Viyoga, yoga means union, means to connect with God. So viyoga is a synonym of vipralamba, or separation. Bhavatinam viyoga me nahi sarvatmanak vachit. Krishna told the gopis through Uddhava, you never actually separated from me because I'm the soul of all creation. And Jiva Goswami says, though, that for those personalities who are participating in the prakat pastimes, they're not aware of that. So Krishna has two broad divisions of Leela, prakat and aprakat, manifest and unmanifest. The unmanifest pastimes are sometimes described as Krishna's pastimes in the spiritual world. And the Prakat Leela is his Gokul Leela as compared to his Golok Leela. Gokul, in a broad way, sometimes the words are used interchangeably. It's a little confusing. The terminology sometimes in Gaudiya Vaishnavism is confusing, as we were discussing, I think, in our last session also. A lot of words are used in several different ways, and that becomes a little confusing. So anyway, in general, Golok means the planet, and Gokul means this particular place here. This is where Krishna's manifested his pastimes in this world, and this is a Prakat Leela. And so the devotees who are participating in his Prakat pastimes, they're not aware that Krishna is never separated from them. And Jiva Goswami says that if in the Prakat Leela, Krishna were to secretly appear sometime in Braj, then that wouldn't create faith. And those people, those Vaishnavas who have a strong longing for Krishna, because just a temporary manifestation wouldn't be satisfying. And all that would do would just create a disturbance. We're hankering and hankering to see someone. You're hankering to see your guru who may have left this world. And then if he comes to you in a dream, and you see him, and, oh, Guru Maharaj, it's been so long, and then he disappears. Our acharyas have compared that to a poor man who becomes rich. He's very poor and he becomes rich, and then he loses all of his money, and he becomes poor again. He's in a more suffering condition than he was before, because before he didn't know what it was like to be rich. So, therefore, it's only indirectly described in the Padma Purana and indirectly in the Bhagavatam, hinted in the Bhagavatam, how Krishna would return permanently only after he killed Dantavakra. So we want to speak something in this session about Uddhava. And let's again look back a little bit. This time, last time we looked back to the 33rd chapter, the first section of the Gopal Champu. Now we're now speaking about the 10th chapter of the Uttarakhanda, the second section. I want to look back in the 5th chapter of the Uttarakhanda, which speaks about Krishna in Mathura. And when he was with Mathura, Krishna was going out with Vasudeva and he's giving joy to everyone. At that time, Krishna remembered Uddhava and he had some desire to see him. And Uddhava was staying from some distance and watching him. This, according to Jiva Goswami, was their first meeting. It's not their first meeting. Uddhava is an eternal associate of the Lord. But just as Srimati Radharani and Krishna, they have what's known as Purva Rag, or they have some feelings of separation before they meet. And there's pastimes, a number of different pastimes describing the first time that Radha and Krishna met. Just like a young boy and a young girl, when they get married, one of the first questions everybody's always asking, how did you meet? Because people are romantic. They want to know, how did you meet? Well, when you first saw each other, was it love at first sight? This or that, right? It's an important kind of question. So, in the same way that Krishna's always with Srimati Radharani, but apparently there's some Purva Rag, some beginning of their relationship. So similarly with Uddhava. And Jiva Goswami describes Anyonyam militasma yahar abhinavam tahi swayam na vidat. Koham kutra kadaka etas itisa prayan sacha Shri Prabhu. Kim cha duragatas chatan na vidvidur na tat cha siddhanti tam. Ko gachen nijatatvam etad ata anayor prema param vetihi. So at that time, when they met, Krishna was thinking, Koham kutra, who am I? Kadaka, where am I? Who are these people? There was so much love between Uddhava and Krishna. Just at first sight, they became confused. Who is this person? Who am I? Who are all these people who are nearby? Kim chaduragatas chatan navividar naitatcha siddhanti tam. Who could understand this thing? Kogachen nijatatvam. Only their prema could understand their feelings. Etad anayor prema param vittihi. Only the prema could understand it. No one else. Who other than that could understand? So at that time, Krishna and Balaram, they went a little ways away from Vasudeva. They made some excuse, so I have to go somewhere and get something. And they met with Uddhava. And then Krishna brought him close and embraced him in joy and was gazing at his face constantly. And Jiva Goswami says that he was soaking, like giving a bath to Uddhava with his tears, which made a pond from his heart, which is full of separation. This is how dear Uddhava is to Krishna. In the 3rd canto of the Bhagavatam, Krishna says, Nodavo napi manyuna, that Uddhava is not even slightly different from me. And this is what we would like to speak something about today, the very special position of Uddhava. And what is the meaning of the word Uddhava? His very name gives us some indication of his intimate relationship with Krishna. There are 3 primary meanings the Sanskrit dictionary gives to the meaning of the word Uddhava. One meaning is a sacrificial fire. A second meaning is festival. And Jiva Goswami in this regard says that Uddhava is a real festival for the residents of Vrindavan. And his name is very, very appropriate. And a third meaning of the name Uddhava is joy or happiness or pleasure. And again, this is a very appropriate name for Uddhava. Actually, all 3 meanings have significance. And we'd like to speak something particular about what Krishna is saying in the 3rd canto of the Bhagavatam, Uddhavo Jnāpi Manyuna. How Uddhava is not even slightly different than myself. Jiva Goswami brings out this point also. Uddhava then means sacrificial fire. In the Mundaka Upanishad, there's a famous verse, Tad Vigyanartam Sagurum Ivabhigachet Samipani Shrotriyam Brahmanishtam. This verse speaks about the qualification of both the disciple and of the guru. The first qualification of the disciple is they should be tad vigyanartam. They should have some desire to know. Some people, they just have a desire to be popular, and that's why they want to get initiated. Or to say that I'm connected to get some prestige or something. I'm connected with such a big guru. I'm a disciple of Gaur Govinda Maharaj. You should give respect. That's not the purpose. Rather, the purpose in approaching Guru is tad vigyanartam. Sagurum ivabhigachet. The word abhigachet, Prabhupada comments on this in one lecture. He says that it's a sandilin verb here, which means that there's no other choice. You must. If you want to understand, then you have to approach Guru. But when you approach Guru, we don't go empty-handed. Samit pani shrotriyam brahmanishtam. We want to, Hare Krishna, we want to approach someone who has these qualifications, who's shrotriya brahmanishtam, who's expert in understanding the Vedic conclusion. They should know Shastra. If you don't know Shastra, Guru Maharaj once told us in one class, he said, if you can't quote Shastra, don't tell them you're my disciple. So this is one of the qualifications of a speaker. They should be Shrotriya. They should repeat Shastra. We may not understand Shastra. That's another thing. We may not have a deep realization. But if we simply repeat, then there's some benefit there. That kirtan of the disciple who's repeating what he's heard from the Guru, Guru Maharaj said that's another word for Shravan, or for hearing. And we want to approach a person who's both Shrotriya, who's learned and realized in the Vedic literatures, and is Brahmanishtam, who's fixed in Brahman, who's Brahmacharya. Brahmacharya literally means whose achar is fixed in Brahma. So, therefore, Prabhupada said the grihastas are also brahmacharis, if they're fixed in spiritual consciousness. But when the disciple comes, samit pani, he should carry some firewood in his hands. Now, I don't see a lot of devotees when they get initiated. Did you bring firewood at your initiation ceremony to give you? You didn't. Nonsense. I've never seen anybody bring firewood to the Guru. It has a deep purport. The purport is that we should bring something to help the service of Gurudev. And therefore, one of the names of Uddhava is sacrificial fire. We mentioned three meanings of the word Uddhava. Sacrificial fire, another meaning is festival in the Sanskrit dictionary, and the third meaning is joy or happiness. And all three of these words are significant. We're commenting today, to catch up to some persons who may have just walked in a very rude way, how the disciple is the separable constituent of the Guru. He's a manifestation of the Guru. And in regards to Krishna's statements in the third canto of the Bhagavatam about Uddhava, he says, Nodavo, Jnāpi Manyuna, that Uddhava is not even slightly different than myself. So Uddhava, the word has these three different meanings. Again, in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, in chapter 10, Krishna tells Uddhava, Acharjo Ranir Adyasyad Ante Vashyuttarayani Satsandanam Pravachanam Vidyasandhi Sukavaha. That the Acharya, the Guru, he's compared to the Arani. When you make a sacrificial fire, I used to live in the forest before I was a devotee and live in a cave. We mentioned this before. And at one point we learned how to make a fire without matches. It's not such an easy thing. You have to have some special kind of wood. So in Vedic culture it's called an arani, that kind of wood. And there's two types of wood, two pieces of wood. There's the lower piece of wood and there's an upper piece of wood. And the spiritual master, He's the lower compared to the lower stick, and the disciple to the upper stick, and then there's a third stick in between them. You're rubbing these. And that third stick, that's the pravachan, or the instructions that the Guru has given. And those three things in connection with each other, they create some fire. And that fire burns the darkness of ignorance to ashes. So many, many things are said about Uddhava. I'm not going to go so much into that today. Just this point that Krishna makes in the third chapter, third canto of the Bhagavatam, Nodavo Yapi Man Yuno, that Uddhava is not less than me. Krishna says, Yad Gunaya Nardita Prabhu. His guna, his qualities, are the same kind of qualities as my qualities. So Uddhava, according to the Harivamsa Purana, it said, Uddhavo Deva Bhagasya Mahabhaga Suto Bhavat Panditanam Param Prahur Devas Ravasam Uddhava. That Uddhava was the son of Deva Bhag. Deva Bhag is the Vasudev's brother. So in other words, Krishna and Uddhava are cousin brothers. And as we'll hear more when we go on, Uddhava looks just like Krishna. We'd like to speak something in some of our sessions, some wonderful discussions that our Guru Maharaj gave that we compiled into a book some years ago called Mathura Meets Vrindavan, and the wonderful descriptions he gives about Uddhava's meeting with Nanda and Yashoda. But we'll also speak some things from Gopal Chandpur, from this book, Vrindavan Lamrita, and from Uddhava Sandesh. So, Uddhava, he's Krishna's representative. Krishna had to find a messenger who had these qualities, who could be both accepted and trusted by the Vrishnis and the Brijbasis. He had to understand it. He had to be able to convey the heart of Krishna. And therefore Krishna said that Uddhava, Uddhava is none different than myself. Nodavo hyapi man yunyan. He's none different than myself. Rupa Goswami, in his beginning of his discussion about the 64 different angas of bhakti, the first things he speaks about is taking shelter of Guru. Guru Padashriyas. The first thing is you take shelter of Guru. You don't know him. You learn something about him. How do you see the Guru? You don't see him with your eyes, you see him with your ears, by hearing what he says. And he's quoting Shastra. He's Shrotriyam Brahmanishtam. And we see his kind of character that he has. We see that he's fixed in spiritual life. He knows Shastra. He's someone who can repeat Shastra. We have three different qualities. Last night I was interviewed by the ISKCON Educational Committee, and on behalf of the GBC body, and we're going to release that video in another few weeks or something, and we'll share with the devotees if they're interested. And we spoke something about what it means, the importance of reading Prabhupada's books, but from a different perspective than most devotees speak, and that is how the absolute importance of hearing from a person, and how we can't separate these two, and how we have three principles, not two. We have three principles. We have sadhu, shastra, and guru. It's not that guru and shastra are the same, and we just do away with one of them, but there is some difference, and all three are important because the qualification of guru is that he speaks shastra. So this is also the qualification we're hearing in this first verse of the 46th chapter, the 10th canto, that Uddhava is Sishya Brihaspati Sakshat. Sukadeva Goswami says that he's directly a disciple of Brihaspati. And Jiva Goswami in Laghu Vaishnava Toshani, when he comments on this, he says that he's not a grand disciple. He's not just a disciple of one of Brihaspati's disciples, but he's directly a disciple. Sakshat, the word is used. And that's important. The same word Sakshat, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur uses in his prayers to the Guru. He says, Sakshat Dharitvin Astamasa Shastra. The Gurudev is Sakshat Dharitvin. He's Sakshat Dhari. He's directly the manifestation of Krishna. So in a similar way, in this first verse of the 46th chapter, the 10th canto, Sukadeva Goswami is saying that Sishya Brihaspati Sakshat, that Uddhava is directly a disciple The same word sakshat is used of Brihaspati. So Rupa Goswami, to go back to Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, when he speaks about the first of the 64 angas of bhakti, the first thing he says is Guru Padashrayas. You take shelter of the pada, of the feet of Gurudev. And then the next point is Krishna Dikshadi. You take initiation from that person. And then Sikshanam. The purpose of that Diksha is Diyake Kiyate in the language of Jiva Goswami. You get something and you destroy something. You get transcendental knowledge. It's not, as there's a saying in Oriya, Kona Funka Guru. Funka means to spit, and Kona means the ear. It's not that Guru just comes and spits in your ear. In other words, not that he just gives you the mantra and it's just a cheap thing, but he's Ashraya Datta. He's giving us shelter through giving us transcendental knowledge. So Guru Padashrayas Tasmat Krishna Dikshadi Sikshanam. And then what comes next? Vishram Bena Guru Seva. We should render service to Guru, but what kind of service? It's not just common service, but the word Vishramba is used. Now the word Vishramba has several meanings. Vishramba means with respect. This respect is a very important quality in any relationship. If we're going to do service to someone, if you offer, even you're a waitress in a restaurant, in a non-devotee restaurant, I feel sorry for you. And you have that task, and you have to serve and somebody comes and you just kind of throw the food at them without any respect, they'll become offended. They won't appreciate that. So all relationships are based on Vishramba, on some respect. But Vishramba has another meaning also. Vishramba means when the lover and the beloved become one. Or in this case, when the guru and the disciple become one. Now, this is a very subtle point. Let's go on let's finish Rupa Goswami's verse first. Guru Padashrayas Tasmat, take shelter of Guru, Krishna Dikshati, then you take initiation, Diksha Adi, Adi means etc., Sikshanam, you hear from him, then Vishram Bena Guru Seva, then after you've heard from him, then you can be able to render service. Once one sannyasi was visiting Bhubaneswar. His name was Sukadev Maharaj. He's an ISKCON sannyasi, preaches a lot in India. Very simple, sweet devotee. He was attending our Guru Maharaj's classes every day for like a week or so. And one day he came to me. Somehow there were two people who were allowed to go to see Guru Maharaj at any time. One was Chaitanya Chandaguru, the temple president, because he's a temple president. And the other somehow was myself, because I was doing some Grantha Seva and I had to ask questions sometimes. So devotees would sometimes come to me and ask me to take them to see Guru Maharaj. Nice opportunity. So one day Sukadev Maharaj came and said, I'd like to speak to Maharaj, could you please take me? So yeah. So we went, and Sukadev Maharaj is very simple. He was very straightforward. He said, Maharaj, I don't understand. You're giving very nice classes, but you're speaking for 3-4 hours. And I see so many Western devotees, they're very inspired, they're coming, but they're not doing any service. At least they should go out and do book distribution or this or that, because it's very different at that time in ISKCON Bhubaneswar. And some Western devotees, like Jagatpati Prabhu, was in charge of the guest house. There were some devotees doing some service. I was doing some deity worship. I was in charge of Jagannath. Guru Maharaj gave me that service personally. But a lot of the devotees were just hearing class. And when he heard that, Guru Maharaj seemed very satisfied. And he looked at him and then he told him, he said, Are Baba, what kind of service will they do unless they first hear? So when we speak about Navavidi Bhakti, the 9 different processes of Bhakti, it begins with Shravan, with hearing. And then comes Kirtan. Kirtan's not first. You can't do, it's not that somebody does Kirtan. You can't do Kirtan until you've done Shravan. You don't know the mantra. You don't know the melodies, even externally. But what to speak of, the purport of that mantra, the purport of that Krishna Katha. So the first thing is hearing. And then when we hear from Guru, Krishna Dikshadi Sikshanam, Diksha also means a kind of hearing. We're hearing the mantra from him. And then we hear instructions from him, then Vishram Bena Guru Seva. Then we can render service, and we can render it in the sense that the disciple becomes one with the Guru. And then what comes after that devotees don't always cite this part. Rupa Goswami says, sadhu vartmanu vartanam. That then you should follow the rules of Shastra according as given by the acharyas, and you should associate with sadhus. If we just take initiation from Guru, but we don't associate with devotees. In Prema Vilas, Nityananda Das has written about a conversation between Narottam Das Thakur and Mahaprabhu's associate, who he gave initiation to in Bangladesh, Lokanath Goswami. And a conversation between Lokanath Goswami and Narottam Das Thakur, and Lokanath is speaking some very esoteric things about the relationship between guru and disciple, and he says that unless the disciple constantly chants and is associating with the guru through his instructions or meditating, and is always very eager to associate with devotees by hearing and chanting, that they won't get the secret thing that the guru has. They may get some initiation, but they won't get that very valuable thing that he has. So it's important. But this statement, which we want to speak about more today, Vishrambena Guru Seva, how the disciple becomes non-different from the guru, how Uddhava is non-different from Krishna, may seem contradictory to another statement which is given in Hari Bhakti Vilas, where Sanatana Goswami, he quotes a shloka from some Vedic literature, Advaitam cha parityagya, which means that one should not speak about or identify themselves as being non-different from Gurudev. So on one hand, Rupa Goswami says, Vishrambena Guru Seva, and on the other hand, Sanatana Goswami says, Advaitam cha parityagya. On one hand, we're told you should become one with Guru, and on the other hand, we're told you shouldn't think yourself one with Guru. So when there's some apparent contradiction, Rupa Goswami and Laghu Bhagavatamrita says we should reconcile the two. Not that I like this one better than this one over here, but we should reconcile the two. We should become one with Guru, but we should never think or advertise that I'm one with Guru, because there's a huge difference between myself and Guru. My Gurudev is such a transcendental person, and who am I? I'm just a very rotten person, but I can't deny that I've gotten some mercy from Gurudev. I can't deny him. But I don't speak about myself as being non-different from him. And Sanatana Goswami comments in his commentary on this verse of Hari Bhakti Vilas, Advaitam Abhedottari, that it means that you shouldn't advertise yourself as being non-different from your Guru. And we see this as a common thing, honestly, amongst a lot of Bahir Mukjanas or external disciples. They want to do what's called Guru Giri, where they want to make a business out of Gurudev. And they wear his t-shirt, they wear his badge, and they let slip quite often, that my Gurudev is such and such. But Sanatana Goswami quotes Samoyan Tantra in Hari Bhakti Vilas, which states that Gopayad Guru Matmana. You should hide your Guru. Don't advertise your Guru, because who is Gurudev and who is myself? It's just like a man who's married. Well, a high-class person will never speak about their intimate relationship with their wife. Similarly, a disciple shouldn't advertise the intimate relationship they have with Guru. Krishna in the Gita, in the 4th chapter, text 3, he tells Arjuna, Sa eva yamaya tedya yoga prokta paratana bhakto si me sakacheti rahashyam etat uttamam. He said, I'm going to speak to you this rahasya, kata, this very confidential thing, because you're my devotee and my friend. And he says, I'm speaking this only to you. I'm not advertising this to everyone else. This is one of the qualifications of the disciple, that he knows who to speak to and who not to speak to. I remember when I came in touch with Guru Maharaj, it's a little bit of a long story, but to get to the quick of it, one of our godbrothers had told me that Guru Maharaj told me a secret mantra. And And he said, but it's in English, it's really not so important. It's kind of a meditation. And this devotee shared that comment that he got from Guru Maharaj with me. And later I said something to Guru Maharaj about it because I didn't feel really comfortable. Because he told me, he said, Guru Maharaj told me this is secret. He said, but since you're getting initiated now from Guru Maharaj, I'll share this with you. So later somehow I mentioned to Guru Maharaj that this devotee had shared it with me. And Guru Maharaj was very angry. Not with me, fortunately, but with this god brother. And he told him, I told you this is just for you. And this is something secret. So one of the qualifications of the disciple that we hear about is that samoy, there's some agreement. And the disciple, samantana padishtavyo vaktavyascha nasangsudi gopaniyam tata shastram rakshaniyam shariravit. That the disciple should keep certain things secret. That's a qualification of a disciple. And he shouldn't advertise everything freely to everyone else. And therefore we have the word in our Sanskrit language, very popular word, which devotees don't always understand so well. The word is gopi. Actually, it's a sweet thing. In the early days of ISKCON, instead of calling the ladies Mataji, or sometimes they might call them Prabhu, but they used to call the ladies Gopi. I always like that very much. Excuse me, Gopi. It's a very, very sweet thing. Right? Prabhupada, by the way, he called Jamuna, he called Malati, he called them Prabhu in letters. I've never seen or heard of Prabhupada ever doing that with an Indian-born lady who speaks an Indian language. But Prabhupada did that. And if somebody wants to do that, what's in the word? It's semantics. There's no harm. Prabhupada also called Saraswati, little 4-year-old Saraswati, the daughter of Malati and Guruda and Shyamasundar. He called her Saraswati Maharaj. So what's the harm? You can call a little girl even Maharaj out of love and affection. So in the Gita, Krishna, in the 18th chapter, he says that this knowledge is very confidential. And idam te nada paskaya na bhaktaya kadachana nachushushave vacham nachamam yo besuyati. That this knowledge, you shouldn't speak it not atapaskaya. Someone who's atapaskaya means they're not austere. You can't speak this to them. They won't be able to get it because they just can't practice any kind of austerity. Someone who's not bhaktaya, who's not a devotee, who's not a bhakta, you can't speak to them this confidential knowledge. Na kadachana, he says, not at any time. You should never speak to those people. And someone who's not chashushave, who's not engaged in service. They just want to hear. There's some students in the university. There are students in different places in the world, in the universities, who are studying Srimad Bhagavatam. But they can't understand because they're not rendering service. This is something we spoke about also last night about the books. You can't separate these two things. We want to encourage people in different techniques and things to study and go deeper in the books. It's very important. Very, very important. But you can't separate that from rendering service. So Krishna says you can't speak to them. And you can't speak to someone who's abhyasuyati, who's envious, who doesn't have faith in you. Don't speak to them. Ashadadani vimuke prashinvati is chopadesha siva nama paradha. It's described in the Padma Purana. It's an offense to the holy name to try to preach to someone who doesn't have faith in you. And we've all, if you're like me anyway, you've experienced this one time or another when you start telling somebody something and they say, look, Prabhu, just leave me alone. Don't preach to me. I already got it. I know this. Okay, please excuse me. Because they don't have faith in you. You can't speak to them. So then one devotee once asked me, what do you do if you want to help someone? You want to preach it. We go out on the streets, nobody has faith in us. So maybe I can't preach to anybody. So then I suggested to them that in that situation, you have to do the hard work of behaving in such a way that they'll develop faith in you. You can't just show up and announce, here I am. Uddhava didn't do like they didn't just show up and say, yeah, Krishna sent me with a message and here I am. I'm Krishna's cousin and I'm a direct disciple of Brihaspati. He didn't advertise that. Advaitam cha parityage. He hid that principle. So there's many important lessons in this pastime of Uddhava, being a representative of Krishna. I'd like to read you a little something from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. This is from an article Srila Bhaktisiddhanta wrote called The Associates of Sri Chaitanya. And this is our title of our discussion today, how the disciple is a separable constituent of the Guru. And Srila Bhakti, I often speak about this, some of you may have heard me, it's a very esoteric topic and a very important topic. He says in the beginning of his article, the associates of Sri Krishna Chaitanya are constituents of himself. A constituent means someone who's part of himself. They belong, they're connected together. They're constituents of himself. It's part of himself. It's our object in this short paper to study the implications of these doctrines. And it says that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is an extended subject. I always love that statement. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is an extended subject. All the 6 divine forms have to be worshipped. Wait a minute. I know the Panchatattva, but what's 6 divine forms? This is a commentary he's giving on the first verse of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which speaks about the Panchatattva and Guru. So Guru is the 6th form. All 6 forms have to be worshipped if we want to worship Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And the Guru is one of his constituents. And he says it's necessary to receive initiation from him. It's also necessary to be instructed by him. As teacher, the Guru has 2 forms. He guides from within, and he's an instructor outside. He's the Chaitya Guru, and he also manifests a particular form later on. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta says the Guru, this is a really deep, beautiful article, listen carefully. The Guru is the embodiment of the manifestation of the divinity to the pure receptive spiritual essence of the disciple. Could you put that in your own words?
No, it was too quick for me.
Too quick. Okay, I'll read it again slowly, and then you can explain it to us. Okay, the Guru is the embodiment of the manifestation of the divinity to the pure, receptive, spiritual essence of the disciple. So Nara, you can explain
Maybe.
Okay, let's pick it apart a little bit. Let's translate it into a little easier English. Okay? The Guru is the embodiment of the divinity. He's the embodiment of the manifestation of the divinity. When Krishna manifests a form, the embodiment of that is Gurudev. And who does he manifest to? He's a manifestation of the divinity to the pure, receptive, spiritual essence of the disciple. So that disciple who's receptive, and his receptivity is pure. And it's the spiritual essence of the disciple. Or to put it in another way, my Guru Maharaj called it Atma Krandana, or the crying of the soul. When the devotee is hankering and crying, then Krishna manifests Guru. He manifests as Guru. He's the embodiment of the manifestation of the divinity to the pure, receptive, spiritual essence of the disciple. It's really not easy language, is it? Don't cry. It's okay. He says, the Guru is the real and original recipient of the truth. Okay? It's hard language, I understand. He's the real recipient of the truth. He's the real and original recipient of the truth. That's Guru. He's the original form, because Krishna, this is how Krishna gives his mercy through Gurus, Krishna Kripa Srimurti. He communicates his knowledge to the disciple. Okay, that's not so hard. Right? The disciple is too small a particle by him to be able by himself to receive the whole truth. What is that? The disciple is just jiva angsa. We're just a very, very tiny particle. And we can't understand Shastra. We can't understand Krishna. We're too tiny to by ourselves be able to receive the whole truth. But he's able to receive that truth through the power of the Guru. The Guru, as it were, takes a disciple by the hand and guides his every step on the plane of the Absolute. So we walk with Gurudev. It's not just that we get initiated in Konafunka Guru, but he takes us by the hand, meaning it's an intimate relationship, and we walk with him. It is perpetual tutelage on the part of the disciple. Got that one? No, okay. It's the disciple, in my Guru Maharaj's language, another time he once said that, I'm eternally the disciple of my Guru. It's perpetual tutelage, meaning that I'm always hearing from my Guru, perpetually. And tutelage means I'm always learning from him. In another article, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said that I pray that I may see my Gurudev in every person. And I may see him in every animal. I may see him in every plant, in every tree, in every stone, in every river, every mountain. I pray that I'm... Srila Bhaktisiddhanta in one article. He says, I pray that I may see my Gurudev every year, every month, every week, every day, every hour, every second. Because if I fail to see my Gurudev everywhere, at all time, and in all beings, then I may fall prey to the bad desire to become Guru myself. Ooh. If I don't see him everywhere. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, we're trying to explain this particular article, or some portion of this article. It is perpetual tutelage on the part of the disciple. I'm always the student of my Guru. My Gurudev will always teach me. And if I'm receptive, if I have the pure, receptive spiritual essence, then I'll always hear his voice through so many different people. My Guru Maharaj said, I always hear Srila Prabhupada, but you can't understand. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta is giving us at least one way to understand that here. And then he goes on. This fact may be expressed in another way. Okay, now you're going to have to explain this next sentence, okay? Here we go. The cognitive faculty of the individual soul can have no ground to stand upon unless the divinity himself condescends to be the legs as well as the ground on which he is to stand to function at all. She's going to start crying and just run out of here in a moment, I think, right? Okay, the cognitive faculty. What is that? That means the ability to perceive. The ability to perceive spirit. The cognitive faculty of the individual soul can have no ground to stand upon. We can't begin to walk. He says we're going to walk on the spiritual path together. We can't even walk on that path unless the divinity himself condescends to be the legs as well as the ground on which he's to stand to function at all. So to be able to function, to move on this path, you have to be able to move on the ground. And unless the disciple, unless the divinity condescends, agrees to become both the legs and the ground, then you can't perceive the cognitive faculty of the, you cannot understand unless the divinity agrees to become the legs and the ground. What does that mean? He doesn't explain that here. But we understand from Chaitanya Charitamrita that Guru has two manifestations, Siksha Guru and Diksha Guru. So the Diksha Guru is Sambandha Datta. He gives us our connection. He is our connection with Krishna. And he's the ground that we walk on. But how do I walk? I don't know. And therefore, the Abhideya Datta is a Siksha Guru. He's a person who teaches us how to walk. And generally, the Diksha Guru is the same as the Siksha Guru, but sometimes not. And therefore, Siksha Guru Gana In grammar, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami indicates that you may have many Siksha Gurus, but you only have one Diksha Guru. Right? So, the Diksha Guru is the ground. Krishna manifests as a Diksha Guru. He's the ground that we are able to walk on. And the Siksha Guru, he's the legs for us to walk on. And he says, this function of the divinity is performed by the Guru. And then he says something which will make your head explode. The next two sentences. You got to hear the next two sentences, and you can go. As a matter of fact, the divinity actually reveals him only to himself. That'll make your head explode. The divinity only reveals himself to himself. What does that mean? Because Gurudev is a manifestation of Krishna. And without him being a manifestation of Krishna, you can't understand him. The Lord only reveals himself through himself. And then he says the next sentence, which we're coming to. The individual soul is a separable constituent of the Guru. Definitely your head will explode. Now, we've told that we're not one, but now we're told that the individual soul is a separable constituent of the Guru. My God. Huh? It's only when he happens to be associated by his own free choice with the Guru in a completely dependent manner that he can be on the plane of the Guru's service of the divinity. It's only when by our own free choice we choose to be completely dependent on Gurudev. He's Ashraya Datta, giving us shelter, that we can be on the plane of Gurudev's service. So this is Samikpani Shrotriyam Brahmanishtam. This is Samikpani. We have to bring firewood to Gurudev. Thank you, Prabhuji. We have to be completely dependent on Gurudev. This is what we're coming with Gurudev. These three things are required. The Guru, the disciple, and the sincerity of the disciple. And this is the firewood that the disciple has to bring. And therefore, one of the meanings of the word Uddhava is sacrificial fire. He's a festival. He's a giver of joy. But Uddhava also is a sacrificial fire, and he's non-different from Krishna. In another lecture, another article called Sri Ramanujacharya, this is printed in the Harmonist in May 1932, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta says, the Guru is Godhead himself. Okay. There's no distinction of category between the Guru and the Supreme Lord, but only one of function. They do a different function. But Guru is a manifestation of Krishna. Acharya Mam, Vijnanaya, Navamanyeta Karichet. Krishna says emphatically in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, understand Gurudev is none different than me. Sakshadaritven Astamasta Shastra, Astamasta Shastra, all the Shastras say that Gurudev is directly the manifestation of Krishna. But the only difference is one of function. Gurudev doesn't create the universes or destroy the universes. But he's coming, he's the manifestation who's the mercy of Krishna. He says the Guru is Godhead manifesting himself as his own servant. Service of Sri Guru is therefore identical with the service of Godhead. The Jiva cannot serve Godhead by his own right. The disassociated particle of power cannot serve the master of power except as a subservient of power. Got that one? No. Okay. The disassociated particle of power, we're the Mamaivam so Jiva Loke, Krishna says in the Gita. We're the angsa, we're the fragmental parts of the Lord. We're disassociated with that power. We can't serve the master of power, Krishna, except as a subservient of power. When we become subservient to the manifestation of that power, then the disassociated particles, ourselves, the individual souls, then we can serve. The Guru is master of power in the role of power for bestowing subserviency to power. Your head's going to explode by the end of this class, I tell you. Okay, the Guru is the master of power. He's a manifestation of Krishna in the role of power for bestowing subserviency to power. His role is to teach us to be subservient. The Guru manifests himself in and through his pure devotees. The pure devotees are the associated counterparts of the Guru. They're non-different. And this is confirmed in Chaitanya Charitamrita. In Amsi Lila chapter 4, it said that Diksha Kali Bhakta Kori Atma Samarpana. Krishna says that at the time of initiation, Kali means Diksha. Diksha Kali, the time you're initiated, Bhakta Kori, Krishna says Atma Samarpana. That devotee becomes non-different from me if he's Atma Samarpan, if he's fully surrendered. Krishna says, Sei Kala Krishna Tari Kori Atma Sam. He's Atma Sam. He's as good as myself. That devotee's body becomes spiritual. And this is Vishrambena Guru Seva. Then he can render service in this very intimate way, because the Guru has revealed his heart to such a disciple. To a disciple who is shown by his pure, what was Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's phrase again? His pure receptive spiritual essence. The disciple, when he associates with the Guru by his own free choice in a completely dependent manner, then that thing enters into the heart of the disciple. And this has been, your head's going to explode, I'm sorry. It's a good thing you didn't wear a hat today. But we'll finish with a nice story that I heard from Radhanath Maharaj. He personally, privately told me this once. That Ramanujacharya had a number of different gurus, actually, even mantra gurus. But they gave him different mantras. Generally, we only have one mantra datta guru. One guru gives us mantra. But in the case of Ramanuja, he had several, and that's possible if the guru is giving different mantras. So one of his mantra datta gurus, his name was Goshtipurna. And Goshtipurna was famous. There's several stories about Goshtipurna. He's a little bit of an angry kind of person. And he's a param guru for the disciples of Ramanuja. So one day, Goshtipurna came to see Ramanuja. And when Ramanuja heard that his Gurudev had come, he told all his disciples, come, we'll go to see Gurudev. He's not envious. He's not thinking, oh, I don't want to tell them about my Guru. But he's taking them to his Gurudev. So he brought them to see Goshtipurna. And the tradition in the Sri Sampradaya was that when you come before a senior person like that, you fall flat on the ground and do your dandavats before Gurudev. And this happened to be in the middle of the summer. In South India, it's like 50 degrees, like 110 degrees in Fahrenheit in America. It's extremely hot. And Ramanuja only had a lungi on. He had nothing on the upper body. And he fell down flat on the ground. And the sand was so hot, all of a sudden you could smell the burning flesh from Ramanuja's body. But the tradition was, you offer your dandavat pranams and you don't get up until your Gurudev gives you permission. So Ramanuja's laying there and you could hear the sizzling sound of his flesh burning, and you could smell it. And Gosipurna wasn't saying anything. He's just standing there. And Ramanuja's disciples, they started freaking out. You can imagine. Guru Maharaj, they wanted to yell at Gosipurna, but that's a big offense. Gosipurna, he's the guru of our guru. So they were just standing there while Ramanuja's flesh was burning off. And finally, one of the disciples couldn't tolerate it anymore. And he started yelling at Gosipurna, "What are you doing? His flesh is burning. Let him up." And then Gosipurna gave some blessing to Ramanuja, said, "You can get up now." And then, when Ramanuja got up, Gosipurna pointed at that disciple who chastised him. And Gosipurna told him, "Keep this one close to you. He's a real disciple. He's ready to commit an offense against his Param Gurudev and go to hell because of that. This disciple is very intimate. He should become your cook." And you should keep him very close. And in this way, Gosipurna was testing the disciples of Ramanuja to see which one is actually Vishramba, intimately one with Guru. And Krishna understanding that Uddhava is non-different from himself. It's just like I'm going there. Only someone who's like that can be Guru. Only someone who's come to this point of Vishrambhena Guru Seva can they really represent Guru. Because Guru, my grandmas used to say, is not the source of the water. Rather, he's the pipe who's carrying that water. And the qualification of the pipe is what? Qualification of the pipe is just that it's clear. If it becomes blocked up, then there's no qualification. We're like a blocked up pipe. And the water, maybe a tiny bit of it comes through us. But Sri Guru is that person where there's no resistance. If you study electronics, there's a certain amount of resistance in different wires for electricity. So if you have a copper wire, it's very good. There's like no resistance. But if you have aluminum or something other material, there'll be some electricity coming through, but because there's resistance, it won't come through purely. So there has to be no resistance. And this is the qualification of Uddhava. And this is why Krishna sent Uddhava to Vrindavan. There's no resistance. And Uddhava is a transparent via medium of Krishna. So whatever Uddhava will say, Krishna's confident this is coming from me. So we'll go ahead and stop there. I'm sorry we went longer than we should. And I want to thank Natalia and Mahendra Prabhu, all the different devotees who are online. If anybody has any reflections they want to share about this topic today, you can go ahead and do that. Aditi's here too. Hare Krishna Aditi and Sanjay and Anil. And Mahendra Prabhu has a comment. Shastra gives gyan, but Guru gives vigyan, realization of that gyan. Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for sharing such tattva. Yes, vigyanartam. We don't want just information. You can go to the university and study Sanskrit. You can study Srimad Bhagavatam and get gyan, get information. But you'll never understand the Bhagavatam as well as Jayananda Prabhu, who hadn't read the whole Bhagavatam and didn't have much time to read, but he was always doing service for Srila Prabhupada. And that service gave him some vigyan. And Mahendra Prabhu also comments that this verse, idam te narapaskaya, is an important verse. And Brenda Sundari from Denver, Colorado, the nice warm Denver, Colorado, says this is a very relishable point, so amazing, thank you. And Madhupati Prabhu from Hungary has commented, Hare Krishna, when I try to see the Guru everywhere, I also feel constantly I'm too stupid to understand anything he says. How will this result in any progress? Yes, if we see Gurudev everywhere, if we really, truly see him, we become humbled. And then we realize what an idiot we are. And we realize maybe even Gurudev is trying, he's knocking on my door, saying, hello, would you please listen, but we're so dull that we can't hear. So two things are there. The search for the message. And the second is the ability to receive the message. And you can't separate the two from each other. We may not be able to hear or identify or understand the message properly. But if we're sincere in the search, if we're trying to be a proper receptive, we're constantly looking for that message, and we're looking at what is he trying to say to me today? Instead of getting angry because I'm locked up and I can't go out and making up conspiracy theories and whatever, or maybe they're real even, instead of blaming everybody else, we call it the blame game. Instead of blaming everyone else, we learn to blame ourselves. Tatenu kampam susamikshamano. That's very humbling. That it's my fault. I hope that's some help. Omkar Prabhu, thank you for taking part. He has some reflection. He says, if we start our devotional service with Guru Padashraya, I have a doubt. How will the disciple know that Gurudev is an intimate associate of Krishna or has realized what he teaches? This tattva is unknown to me till I had the fortune to hear from Srila Gaura Govinda Maharaj. How can we know the details of any sampradaya without taking initiation? Or was it taken that every person following the Vedas knew it? No, Acharyavan, Acharyavan Purusho Veda, it's said in the Upanishads, that if you want to understand the Veda, if you want to know, then Acharya, you have to accept Guru. But our Our Guru Padashraya begins with Shravan, with hearing. And therefore, Guru is sadhu. And the first thing is sadhu. Bhaktivedanta Maharaj speaks about this sequence. Sadhu, then Shastra, then Guru. We first hear from sadhu. And what do we hear from sadhu? We hear Shastra. And after hearing from some sadhu, my Guru Maharaj once told me 4 things. You should hear, read, write, and speak. And he explained as a sequence of these 4 things, which maybe I shouldn't try to explain right now. Our time's a little short. But first we hear, and then we read. And we read Shastra. And then by reading that, we understand, we remember what we heard. And then we understand what we've heard from sadhu about the importance of Bhagavad Gita. And therefore we're going out during this month and distributing Bhagavad Gita. You hear about the importance of it, but then you should read it. And then when you read it, oh, now I understand something about the qualification of Guru. So by the mercy of sadhu we get Shastra, and then by the mercy of sadhu and Shastra we get Guru. And then we can have Guru Padashraya. But if we try to take shelter of Guru and we're not hearing from him first, it's just artificial. What are you taking shelter of? You're not taking shelter of his instructions. You're not taking shelter of his heart. You're just taking shelter of some external thing. You get a dress, or you get a thread, or this or that. But it's not the real thing. Leelavatar Mataji, Hare Krishna. And our dear Raghava Pandit Prabhu from sunny Connecticut, he just sent me a photograph this morning. There's like half a foot of snow everywhere there. But I'll bet you're warmer than we are because it's cold inside the houses here in India. So I asked from the devotees here present if they have any comments. And Ananta Gauranga Prabhu is raising his hand. And Anil has something online and again we'll come back to them. So go ahead, Prabhuji.
Prabhu, I got a question. You mentioned that we can have just, of course, one Diksha Guru, Diksha Guru, and unlimited Shiksha Guru. What if Shiksha Guru and Diksha Guru
Okay, can you hear now? Just a second. Anapayani, can you hear now? Rabinda Sundari? Madhupati, can someone tell me if you can hear now? Hare Krishna. I don't know if you can hear. Can you hear? Anyway, they say we can't hear. Now it works. Okay. This mic's really sensitive. Okay, I'm sorry. So we should take permission from our Diksha Guru, and we should return, Narhari Sarkar says, to our Diksha Guru with whatever we've gotten from our Siksha Guru, and confirm that there. Because otherwise, if we don't see them as being non-different, then there may be some confusion. There may be some problem. And oftentimes, as like in the case of, I'm trying to think of as an example, of Shyamananda Prabhu, his guru, he was Dukhi Krishna Das, and his guru instructed him, you go to Jiva Goswami as your Siksha Guru. And he got that, and you're going to hear something else from Jiva Goswami, not from myself. I can't make the sound any more audible than it is right now unless you come here. I don't know why it's not audible on Karpabhu. I'm sorry.
At the same time, Prabhu, looks like, if I'm not wrong, I read that Diksha and Shiksha Guru are on the same level.
They may not be on the same level. Sometimes the Siksha Guru is more advanced than the Diksha Guru. And examples given of Yadunandan Acharya, who's a Diksha Guru of Raghunath Das Goswami. But his Siksha Guru is Swarup Damodar Goswami. Yadunandanacharya is not a lightweight person. He's very exalted. He's a good friend of Haridas Thakur. But at the same time, Swarup Damodar Goswami is a much more exalted person. My Guru Maharaj was once asked a question, who is more important, the Siksha Guru or the Diksha Guru? And he gave such a good answer. He said that whoever occupies your heart is more important. But we see them as equal manifestations of Krishna. This is what Prabhupada describes in Chaitanya Charitamrita in one purport. We see that Krishna's coming in these two ways. And it's not that, oh, I like this one and I don't like this one. I respect both. But there's a little different function. For example, I visited some Gaudiya Mata temples sometimes doing research. And one such temple I visited, I remember pretty much everybody there was taking Siksha from the resident Acharya. But they had Diksha from another person. And when you look at the altar, there was no picture of their Siksha Guru. They just had the Diksha Guru. Because on the altar, we have a picture of our formal connection. And that formal connection is our Diksha Guru because he's mantra datta. He's given us a mantra which we chant. The mantra which we use to worship the deity. So I can't approach the deity without it. But in the case of those devotees, their life and soul was their Siksha Guru. He was much, much more prominent in their life than their Diksha Guru. And they'd gotten permission from their Diksha Guru to live with their Siksha Guru. And they were closer with him. And they felt more inspiration from the Siksha Guru. And perhaps, I don't know, perhaps the Siksha Guru was even more advanced. But no matter what, they kept the picture of their Diksha Guru there. There's subtle things which we don't always understand. Let me go back online a little bit. Leela Avatar Mataji, who I thought was here in Mayapur, she was. She says, I'm in the USA already, and I've been missing some of your classes. It's 10:45 p.m. I'm glad I heard this one. Well, thank you for taking part. And I apologize for the microphone problems. I won't adjust it anymore. Anapani is going to get angry. She's complaining. So going back, there's a few comments. Neil has commented, thanks a lot for the eye-opening class. It was really awesome and inspiring, and we can definitely see, anyway, can you please post the article from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati? Yes, I'll post that, at least some excerpts from it here on Facebook. And Naveen has commented, is there an opportunity for the disciple to continue to serve one's Guru Maharaj in the spiritual planets as well? Yes, just as we're serving here, we'll also serve there. And Guru is one. What does it mean that Guru is one? Guru may manifest, Krishna may manifest in many different forms. Krishna is Samasti Guru. And our particular Guru is called Vyasti Guru. These are terms which Jiva Goswami gives in Bhakti Sandarbha. Samasti means the sum total of all Gurus, like the sun. And the Vyasti Guru is like a kiran, or a ray of light from the sun. If a few rays of sunshine come into this room and it's very cold, it's pleasant, it's nice. But if the sun planet comes into this room, it's not so nice. It'll create a big problem. We'll all be burned to ashes. So there's a difference between Samasti Guru and Vyasti Guru. And Vyasti Guru means wherever Krishna manifests. Once I asked my Guru Maharaj the same question Naveen is asking, is the Diksha Guru that we have in this life, are we also going to be with him in the spiritual world? And my Guru Maharaj replied, not necessarily. He said in some cases, if the disciple is very, very intimate with the Guru, it may be like that. But otherwise, there's the principle of Guru. And your Gurudev, who is the principle of Krishna himself, will manifest through another Vaishnava, will speak through another Vaishnava. Otherwise, it becomes problematic mathematically. For your Guru Maharaj, he has what now? 30,000 disciples or something like that, Jayapataka Maharaj? Some outrageous number like that. So what's he going to do? Already a number of disciples left their body. When all those disciples leave their bodies, and some of them, not all of them go back to Godhead, some of them take birth in America, some take birth in India, some take birth in South America, some take birth on another planet, some take birth maybe in another universe. and he's supposed to go and take care of all of them. It becomes really complicated. And then out of those 30,000 disciples, let's say theoretically, let's say that 25,000 go back to Godhead. That's a pretty good number, I would think. But 5,000 disciples don't go back to Godhead. And out of those 5,000 disciples, some are here, some are there, and some of them take another 20 lifetimes. And in those 20 lifetimes, they may take birth in different places and things. It becomes so, how does it work? So Guru Maharaj once commented that it's not that Gurudev has to go and take birth every single different place. It's not going to work. But he empowers a Vaishnava nearby. And we'll know, this is my Gurudev. I personally experienced that. I felt that my Guru Maharaj sent someone to me. And we feel in our heart. I felt that way with my Guru Maharaj. I prayed to Prabhupada, please send me Guru, please send me someone. And then when I met my Guru Maharaj, I felt strongly Prabhupada sent him to me. And you can't legislate that. That's a realization of the heart. Okay, let's see, anything else from anybody? Janeshwari, Hare Krishna Janeshwari from Hawaii. Thank you for your wonderful service and nectar classes. Hare Krishna, nice to see you here. So, William Prabhu?
I was just wondering.
Speak really loud.
Yes. When is it that one receives the Bhakti Lata Beach? When is it?
When does one receive the Bhakti Lata Beach? Well, the reception of the Bhakti Lata Beach, we can say in different ways. This is a controversial topic. I've heard different Vaishnavas say different things about it, what the beach is, when it comes. We can say that we've gotten that beach when we've gotten the holy name from Guru. That beach, some Vaishnavas say, is that the holy name is the beach. But then Shravanam Kirtanam Jale, Chaitanya Charitamrita says we have to water that beach. But you've gotten the seed, but until the encore comes, until the sprout starts coming out of it, do you really have the seed? Maybe because you're not watering it properly, then I may say I haven't really gotten the seed because it hasn't started sprouting. So another way to look at, that's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is you have to have a fertile ground to put the seed. So in this regard, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in his commentary on Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, in one place, he says that initiation is when you get this Bhakti Lata Bij. He said, but someone may say that that's where Bhakti begins. But then someone may say that it begins in another place. And he gives an example, just like a fire sacrifice. Uddhava means a fire sacrifice. So when does a fire sacrifice, what is a fire sacrifice? Well, that's when you pour ghee in the fire and you say the name of Agni, the demigod. His wife is named Swaha. Swaha idam Krishnaya idam namama. You offer that ghee in the fire and you chant that name. That's the fire sacrifice. But there are other activities which are preliminary, which lead to that fire sacrifice. And strictly speaking, they're not the fire sacrifice. You have to go to the shop and buy ghee. You have to get some firewood. You have to go and sweep the area. You have to get bricks, and you have to put the bricks down. Those activities are not the fire sacrifice. But because they're leading to the fire sacrifice, in one sense, they're also the fire sacrifice. Okay? So bhakti is a very subtle and very deep thing. Bhakti begins when we've taken initiation from Guru and we're fully surrendered to Guru. And we begin this Vishrambena Guru Seva, the service one in the heart. That's a real Bhakti Lata Beach. But on the other hand, it also begins in our conditioned state when we're just clearing the ground and we're hearing and chanting Chaita Darpana Marjanam and we're purifying our heart. That's also part of it. Is that okay? Hare Krishna devotees also always have complicated answers for everything. Okay. Anything else from anybody in the reflections? Govinda, speak loud so Anapani can hear you. Yeah, okay, come over here.
I really like the point about the Guru Maharaj made about hearing. If they don't hear, what service they'll do. So that was very important, that service, rendering service to Guru by lending our ears and our attention. So that was such a good point.
Thank you.
And I also like that point about what the disciple needs to do in order to get the real gift from the Guru, the Vishrambena, that he said that I think I remember you have to be connected with Guru and the sadhus and serving Guru, and then Guru can impart you that.
And associate.
Yeah, that's what she's saying. Sadhus.
Yeah, new
Sorry.
associations, yes.
Yeah, it's a very,
Yeah.
very
And
important
I
point.
was like, wow, have I done that? It was like that things like
That hearing is
Shaking.
that hearing is so important. And grandmas used to say that hearing is eternal, and we hear by repeating. And so we have functions like this. We come together and we want to, idam te nadapaskaya, we want to speak something to persons who are qualified, who are not envious. And there's some envy sometimes. Subtle envy may be there, whatever. So we can't speak, even sometimes in the assembly of devotees. But it's necessary that we do speak. And therefore Krishna is saying this verse, idam te nadapaskaya. You have to find someone who's anasuya, who's not envious, if you want to repeat this thing. And we need to repeat this. This is what gives us life. Anybody else reflection? Nari?
Yeah.
Did your head explode this morning?
No, it was like really amazing class. Thank you so much. Through the class was going, some questions were arising in my head. And slowly we've been answering all of them. It's so nicely. I mean, first part you've been saying just about like Guru Tattva. And I was thinking, and how can it be connected with Shiksha Guru and Diksha Guru? And just next point you started explaining is like Shiksha and Diksha Guru, and I really like the point that Shiksha Guru is like a leg of disciple.
Like that?
Legs. Just because it's turned out in my spiritual life that my Diksha Guru is not the same like Shiksha Guru. And at one point I was really frustrated, like in my neophyte thoughts, that when I'm hearing to my Diksha Guru, I don't feel the same in my heart when I'm feeling my Shiksha Guru. And I've been speaking about it with my close friend, and she told me, no, Nari, we have a Shiksha Parampara. So, I mean, don't hesitate that you can hear your Shiksha Guru and you can accept him fully as your Guru also in your heart. And after that point it became more easy for me. I mean, that I accepted for myself. Yes, I can hear my Shiksha Guru all the time, and I can accept him as my Guru Maharaj fully also. And that you've been talking about it like softened my heart. Thank you so much. It's like very important. And also I like the story so much, the last story about yeah, it's amazing. Actually, I remember the story like maybe similar context, that Gopi agreed to give the dust from their feet for Krishna, not having no fear that they will go to hell, because love is more than rules and regulations. Thank you so much.
Your comment reminded me of a commentary on Raghunath Das Goswami's Manasiksha. And in the first verse of Manasiksha, Raghunath Das Goswami says, Guru Goste Gostalisu Sujane Bhusuragane. He speaks about how if you want to render service to Radha and Krishna, you want to enter Vrindavan, you have to give respect to all these persons. And the first thing he says is Guru, to your Gurudev. And there's a Vaishnava in Orissa named Gopal Krishna, who's called Bhakta Kavi, or the king of all the poets. And he wrote a commentary on this. I'd like to share his commentary with you. Diksha Guru Rupe Swayam Shri Govinda Siksha Guru Rupe Radha Vaishnava Swarupe Saki Gana Sarve Hori Beto Bigna Bada. Diksha Guru, he's directly Govinda, Krishna, Swayam Shri Govinda. And who is this? He's directly Krishna. Then who is the Siksha Guru? Siksha Guru Rupe Radha. The Siksha Guru is Radharani. Because Radharani, she's Bhakti Datta, she's the giver of Bhakti. She's Bhakti Devi. And then who are the Vaishnavas? Vaishnava Swarupe, Saki Ganasaive. They're the gopis. That's who and these three, Horibeto Bigna Badha, they remove the obstacles from our devotional path. Well, thank you. Anybody else with reflection? Mataji has something?
I have a question.
Okay.
About Siksha and Diksha.
About Siksha and Diksha.
Yeah. So if one has a Diksha Guru that they've been following and surrendering to. And they come to a point that they're attracted for Siksha somewhere else, but the Diksha Guru only wants to be the Siksha Guru, doesn't want to give permission for Siksha elsewhere. Does the disciple then just surrender to the Diksha Guru and leave the Shiksha?
This is a very, very sensitive, difficult kind of question, and it's not a black and white answer. Although sometimes devotees try to give black and white answers to it. My own Guru Maharaj, I heard him give two different, completely opposite answers to this. Mm-hmm. One time he said, no, you have to take permission. In one lecture. Another time he said, if he doesn't give permission, it means he's not a Vaishnav, the Diksha Guru, and then you can go ahead. So let's take shelter of Shastra at this point, which is Shastra is always the stable principle. And in the Narada Pancharatra and in the Mahabharata both, there's a similar verse. I can't remember the Sanskrit. Anyway, same verses there in both places. In a similar story where the disciple rejects the guru. Oh God, Sanskrit should come to my mind. It's not coming. Anyway, in the Mahabharata, there's a story of Bhishma Dev and how Parshuram instructed him to get married. And Bhishma Dev says, forget it. He rejects his guru. And in the Narada Pancharatra, the same thing happens with Lord Brahma and Narad Muni. Lord Brahma tells Narada, you got to get married. And Narada says, forget it, you're not a bona fide guru. I'm not going to, you're in Maya, dude. I'm not going to follow you. I'm not going to get married. But what's interesting, if you scratch a little deeper, and many times devotees quote this verse, which I can't remember, an important verse. What is it? Yeah. Guru avalipsate. That's part of it.
I thought you were the manual.
Yeah, thank you. Although it's said that Bhishma Dev rejected Parshuram, let's look at the context. Let's read it. And he says, forget it, you're in Maya, I'm not going to follow you. But then, and then Bhishma Dev said, Parshuram says, okay, then we're going to have to fight. So Bhishma, okay. But before they began to fight, what did Bhishma Dev do? He came and offered obeisances to Parshuram and says, Gurudev, please give me permission to fight with you. And they fought for many days. And every day, every morning, Bhishma Dev would go to Parshuram and say, Gurudev, please give me permission to fight with you today. Yes, you have my permission. And how did their fight stop? The demigods came to Bhishma Dev and they said, you're in Maya, you're in nonsense. You're committing an offense against your guru. So how do we reconcile these two principles? You may reject a particular principle, but he didn't reject the mantras that he'd gotten, because the mantras were in the form of astras, weapons. And he used those same astras to fight with his guru. So we know for sure, 100% sure, he didn't reject the mantra that he'd gotten from his guru. Then what did he reject? What he rejected, Gurapya viliptasya karya karya majanata, that we should give up someone who's useless guru. But what does that mean? It means we're giving up that instruction, some particular instruction, which, to get back to your question, means it's a little more complicated. Because which instruction? I certainly wouldn't give up the instruction to chant Hare Krishna. I wouldn't give up the instruction to read Srimad Bhagavatam. But in these particular cases, they rejected the Guru's instruction to get married. So some instructions may be rejected. And ultimately then we have to take shelter of the Chaitya Guru in the heart. And he'll whisper in our ear, if we're Chaito Darpana Marjanam, if we're properly purifying our heart, he'll whisper in our ear, there's something wrong. And then when we give respect to our Diksha Guru, and as I saw one time, one devotee, very dramatic thing, their Diksha Guru had said something that they felt very hurt by. And they got up in the middle of the class and they circumambulated their Guru, offered obeisances and left. Giving respect to him. You're my Diksha Guru, but I'm not going to follow what you're saying. And this is not correct. So I wish I could give a very simple black and white yes or no kind of answer. My Guru Maharaj sometimes gave simple answers for that, but he gave two completely contradictory ones. Sometimes he said you have to take permission from the Diksha Guru. Now, one thing you might do is we have a relationship with the Diksha Guru, and relationships are always a work in progress. So we may ask and we say no. And then we may go back and say, Guru Maharaj, I've really been thinking a lot about it, and I'm really attracted to this other person, and this, and is it okay? And we may get someone else to go with you, one of his godbrothers or something. It's a work in progress. That's Krishna Kun.
I have a particular case where somebody asked permission to take shiksha from someone else, and usually this spiritual master always, like his mood is that he always gives permission to his disciples to take shiksha elsewhere, because he feels that his godbrothers are helping him to take inspiration, and it's wonderful. But in this particular case, he said no. And it took the disciple a few years to get back to him and ask why. And he said, because your mood was not correct. You wouldn't have been able to take the inspiration. You would have just gone here and there and everywhere, and I wouldn't have been able to protect you. So sometimes it might just be a good reason to ask what. Good way to deal with it, to ask why if he says no.
Nice comment. Thank you very much, Krishna. Okay, anybody else with anything?
Very nice class.
You're not shaving, right? No.
I have a toothache.
What?
I have a toothache.
Oh, really? That's good for it. That's cool.
An electronic device that
I also have a toothache. I was thinking of going to the dentist.
Can I ask a question?
Okay, Krishna Kun has a question.
I appreciated that reflection of someone who said that from Shastra you get Gyan, and from Gurudev you get Vigyan. At the same time, it reminded me how the Bhagavatam is Krishna, and if someone is serving the Bhagavatam, I felt that you can get Vigyan from that.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to clarify that point.
Yeah.
That it's
But that's not an informational relationship with the Bhagavatam
Yes.
either. Shri Shri Shoshadadana Shah Vasudeva Katavachi Shamaha Sevaya Viprapunya Tirthana, saying that we have to render service. And when we render service like that, then we understand the Bhagavatam. Without rendering service, we can't. So there's different ways to understand the Bhagavatam. And someone may understand in a theoretical, informational kind of way better than 100 devotees. We gave an example last night. I don't want to go long into that in our interview we had about the books. I once met a scholar, a Sanskrit scholar, who by the age of like 8 or 10 had memorized the entire Bhagavad Gita, all the shlokas, and memorized hundreds of verses of the Bhagavatam and verses from Lita Madhav and Ujjwal Nilamani, and so an amazing person. But he also was attached to eating fish and smoking cigarettes, and he had some strange ideas. So he has some information, an amazing amount of information. It's good information. We don't want to discourage him. We don't want to stop someone from even going to the VIHE or the Mayapur Institute just because they want information. You'll get purified by that information. It's beneficial. It's very good. But part of the information you should get is that you should render service. Otherwise you won't understand properly. Okay? All right.
Madhya Guna was here today because last class we've been discussing like Srimati Radharani and Krishna relationships, and she told about like we should concentrate on Guru, and I wish she could be
I mentioned
here
it to
today.
her. I'll meet her today. I
Yeah.
mentioned the topic today,
Yeah.
and maybe even this for Shiksha Guru Radha.
Yeah, it's
something
amazing.
like
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah. Oh,
All right. Okay, Granjana Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Samaveda Bhakta Binda ki jai, Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. So we will be back again. Today is what? I forget what day of the week this is. This is, what is it? Friday. Okay. So we will be back again on Sunday at the same time. Vanchakalpadribhishcha, Kripasundubhyevacha, Patitanam